So a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about quarterbacks who needed to get real jobs. These are guys who have already played at 2 or 3 different schools, are on their 6th or 7th year, or in my opinion, just don't need to be playing. Whether you agreed or disagreed with the video, there is one guy who I think we can all admit may need to hang up the cleats and try something else out. That is 9th year player Cam McCormick. He's currently a tight end for the Miami Hurricanes and has one of the craziest stories in all of college football. He could end up having a storybook ending, or he will just flame out. I really don't know, but many of you guys are probably wondering, how does a player get 9 years of eligibility? Who even is this guy? And what sort of impact could he have on the 2024 college football season? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about the insane and honestly unbelievable story of Cam McCormick. We're going to go through how he got 9 years of eligibility, how he got to this point, and how he spent nearly a decade playing college football. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll have plenty of college football content coming out over the next few months, and you definitely won't want to miss that. So also be sure to leave a like and turn on post notification. Now, let's meet Cam McCormick. According to statistics, the average length of a tight end's NFL career is just under 3 years. Combine that with a college career that's probably 4 or 5 years, and on average, a typical tight end in American football plays just under 8 years of football at the college and professional level. But imagine a career that lasts 9 years before you even graduate or ever step foot in the NFL. That is the reality for Cam McCormick, who started out his career at Oregon before many devastating injuries and roadblocks ended up keeping him off the field. Cam was born on April 2nd of 1998 in Mesa, Arizona, and his family had a lot of struggle, unfortunately. Eventually, his family would move to Bend, Oregon, and that would happen when he was in 2nd grade. He ended up becoming a super talented player for Summit High School and played both tight end and defensive back, earning a 3-star rating from pretty much every recruiting site. He was eventually listed as the 4th best prospect in the state of Oregon and the 2nd best tight end in the western United States. He ended up taking a visit to Oregon in 2014 and eventually decided to sign with the Ducks, which were his favorite team growing up. At the time, Mark Helfrich was the head coach of Oregon, and he said, quote, "Cam has unlimited potential. When he focuses on football and the year-round commitments we ask of those guys, it'll be amazing to see how he changes and develops." Keep in mind, this was all the way back in 2014. That was literally a decade ago. At the time, McCormick also held offers from other Pac-12 teams, which included UCLA and Washington, and even Michigan gave him an offer. To point out just how long ago he played in high school, he was part of the same recruiting class that brought Justin Herbert to Eugene. During his junior year, Cam actually had pretty good stats, as he caught 35 passes for nearly 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the injury bug would start for him during his senior year, as he ended up tearing his ACL on his knee. Eventually, signing day would arrive. In some worlds, schools will actually pull a scholarship offer because of that, but Oregon would end up keeping their promise to Cam and decided to bring him in. He said, quote, "Oregon supported me 100% throughout my injury, and that's why I think Oregon is the school for me." Because of that injury and the faith that Oregon showed him, McCormick was pumped to be a Duck. He said, quote, "There's a fire inside of me because I couldn't show everybody what I was about my senior year." He'd end up enrolling early at Oregon, but he wasn't really able to practice much during that spring because he was recovering from the injury, and in terms of his hype, he was just your average 3-star player. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a 3-star recruit, the number 23 tight end, and the 539th best player in the class of 2016. He was not Oregon's most hyped player in 2016, but honestly, he might become the 2nd most notable behind Herbert from that class. In 2016, the Ducks would go 4-8, and he would not see the field, and Mark Helfrich was fired. Cam would see his first game action in 2017, and at the time, they had just brought in head coach Willie Taggart from USF. Cam would play in 7 games as a redshirt freshman, catching 6 passes for 89 yards and a touchdown. At the time, he was looking like a promising young weapon, and many thought he would start in 2018 under another new head coach, Mario Cristobal. But unfortunately, the injury bug would bite again, as in their season opener against Bowling Green in 2018, he broke his leg and left ankle. Originally, he told reporters that he felt fine and was running based on adrenaline, but then he was walking and felt something was terribly wrong. He sat out the entirety of the 2019 and 2020 seasons as the broken leg was unbelievably serious. He would spend 3 years on the sideline recovering from that injury, redshirted in 2016, and got minimal action in 2017. By now, he had already gone through the entirety of a college career, but he'd be given a lot of grace by the NCAA. As a senior in 2021, Cam was finally ready to play football again. Sadly, it seemed Oregon had kind of moved on from him, and I don't really necessarily blame him, and he only ended up playing in one game, which was their game against Ohio State. He caught one pass for 16 yards, and what's absolutely crazy is the guy actually got hurt on that play. He suffered a torn ACL, which would now let him miss the remainder of the 2021 season. This now marked 4 consecutive years where Cam's season was over before he got a chance to play, and twice it happened in the season opener. In 2022, Dan Lanning would bring him back, and when he was finally healthy enough to play, honestly though, nothing would really end up happening for Cam, as his best season was his freshman year in 2017, and in 13 total games, caught 10 catches for 66 yards and 3 scores. Technically, after the 2022 season, Cam was still a junior. He decided to come back, but this time he would not end up playing for Oregon. He would petition the NCAA for another season of eligibility, and then would eventually follow Mario Cristobal to Miami. He was approved by the NCAA for his 9th year, and he played his 8th year at Miami. He said, quote, "Since being at Oregon with all the injuries I had, Cristobal was always on my side and was loyal. I felt like it was my duty to play another year with Coach Cristobal, and that's where we are now." Last year for the Canes, he ended up catching 8 passes for 62 yards, and while that wasn't noteworthy, his decision to come back for 2024 was. Obviously, the concept of a 9th year senior has never happened, and people have mixed reviews on it. Honestly, I see both sides. Plenty of other players in the history of sports who've gotten screwed due to injuries, and they did not get 9 years worth of chances. On the other side, I see it as a cool story, and a guy who won't give up. Some are probably wondering, how is this even possible? Well, he accumulated 1 extra year from the 2020 season, and since he sat out the entirety of 2019 and 2020, he got injury redshirts, both of which were granted, which would then give him 3 years of extra eligibility. He then would have to petition the ACC for this year's, and then on top of that, in 2 of his other seasons, he only played in the opening game, and he was apparently given injury redshirts for that. It means he had 4 seasons to play, had the extra year in 2020, and then had 4 medical redshirts. Honestly, McCormick probably won't have much of an impact on Miami this year, but they do get a leader, they get a good story, and a guy they'll probably make a movie based on someday. Based on everything I've read, he is an incredible guy, and I have to applaud him for not giving up. If I was in the same shoes as him, I probably would have taken it as a sign that football wasn't for me, but honestly, props to him, and I hope he has some sort of big touchdown, big game, or big season or something. Honestly, for multiple reasons, he's probably not really an NFL prospect, as he's already super old, has a horrible injury history, and hasn't even really put up good stats. Apparently, he got his master's degree in advertising from Oregon, and is also taking classes at Miami, so this is a guy who has set himself up really well for the future. He also has a great story, and I bet in some way, shape, or form, he'll make a lot of money off NIL, because I think he's the first 9th year college football player ever. Maybe it's a little harsh to say that Cam McCormick should get a real job, but maybe I'll make a one-time exception for him. He has gone through unbelievable amounts of tragedy and bad luck, and I hope he balls out this year. So yeah, today we talked about the insane story of 9th year tight end Cam McCormick, and give me your thoughts down below. Should this guy be on a football field this fall? What do you think of his history, and who's another guy who has been in college football for way too long? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like, check out all my other videos on the end screen, and I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.